So Paige Bueckers versus Caitlin Clark is going to be a rivalry for the ages. Like, it's already been a rivalry where throughout almost their entire careers, like from the time they were 15 years old, the best guards in the nation in their class were the two of these and Hailey Van Lith. Hailey Van Lith realistically is not in the conversation anymore, but as freshmen in high school, Paige Bueckers was always number one. The three of them, it went Paige Bueckers 1, number 2 was Caitlin Clark, Hailey Van Lith was number 3. And in college, initially, Paige Bueckers National Player of the Year. They were co-freshmen of the year, but Paige Bueckers was the superstar. Paige Bueckers had the advantage there, and then as time went on, Caitlin Clark was absolutely balling. In 2022, she became probably the bigger name. Paige Bueckers then was injured in 2023, and Caitlin Clark had the best college year arguably ever up to that point. And then in 2024, Caitlin Clark eclipsed it, and now it's Caitlin Clark is the A side in this rivalry. But Sue Bird, WNBA legend, talked about the growth of the game, and basically credits Paige Bueckers. So let's take a listen to Sue Bird on her podcast.
Which is, so Paige Bueckers is, about to be a senior, whatever year it was she was in high school.
In high school, okay, senior in high school.
2018, 19, something like that. And I'm starting to see on social media, like, this kid's got buzz. People are following her. I see, you go to her Instagram account, who knows what it was. She's got 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 followers, which for a high school kid, a basketball player. So I saw that and I was like, huh. I was like, there's something is clicking.
And she's not wrong. Look, people don't understand. Paige Bueckers was literally on the cover of Slam as a high school player. I think so. Van Lith might have been as well. But no, but like Paige Bueckers was that. Like Paige Bueckers' high school games were getting swarmed. Like she was getting swarmed at high school games. She was a celebrity in high school. Whereas Caitlin Clark playing at Downey Catholic, hooping. Like she hooped at Downey Catholic, no question about that. But like, or say not Downey Catholic. Jeez, I mixed up. Downey Christian was the school where, what's their names? The Newmans went. Dowling Catholic. But she was just incredibly good. She wasn't getting swarmed in high school. People show up to watch her games, but it was not Paige Bueckers.
For that generation. So it's kind of the end. Because when I saw that, I was like, oh, we're good to go. But from my own experience, what I already knew and what a lot of us already knew was, yes, we weren't making a ton of money from our WNBA salaries, but I was getting endorsement deals. I did have value, like significant financial value, to come speak at events or represent, a certain company, or even down to the like, hey, my kid's getting bat mitzvahed, I'll pay you this to come show up at this event. So there was like a disconnect. I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting.
The problem is that like, when Sue Bird's talking about that and there being a disconnect, the problem is that at that stage in WNBA, there was about 10 players that you would really like, that were like celebrities. Let's say this is late 2010s. Like it would have been her, Sylvia Fowles, Candace Parker, Taurasi, Griner, Stewie, even at that stage, Stewie. That would be really it. Like that was an era where like Maisha Hines-Allen was making all W first teams. Like it wasn't the same league as there is now. Like a lot of the best players were either too young or like not in the W. And it kind of was like Maya Moore as well, obviously Maya Moore. But the difference is that now there are 20, 30 players in that boat, whereas Sue Bird, and you can't forget, Sue Bird was probably one of the 3 or 4 most famous WNBA players at that time. So yeah, there was always going to be endorsements for her. Just like there was always endorsements for Lisa Leslie, there would always be endorsements for Candace Parker. Not at the NBA level, but there always was. Elena Deladon as well, who I forgot to mention.
These offers off the court because I'm a basketball player. But on the court, the business part of the basketball is not getting the looks or the value. So then I start learning about how the systems.
I will say though, if the league was entirely made up of the Sue Birds of the world, the league might have made money. The problem is like, you were going to make a brand money by being in their advertisements, which is why they're willing to pay you. But it didn't matter what you did. You were not going to make the WNBA money. the first players really to do that are this current crop of players in your Caitlins, your Angels, your Paiges, your Jujus. They're the first crop players that are really going to make the league money.
Are not really set up for the WNBA to succeed. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I also was like, the reason that this has not kaboomed the way we're seeing it now isn't because people don't like women's basketball.
Right.
Like, how many times would you hear 10 years ago, like, nobody goes to those games? And then I'm like, well, that's weird because I was just in the finals and it was sold out. And people are seeing it now and they're like, wow, look at this crowd support. And by the way, the attendance has been record breaking. It's not
Like, the problem is as well, it's the way the game is played. Like, outside of, like, yes, the Lynx just play good basketball. And in her defense, her Storm teams played pretty good basketball. But, like, there is still puke basketball in the WNBA. Last season, the Chicago Sky played puke basketball. The Connecticut Sun played puke basketball. The Aces played puke basketball. And by puke basketball, I mean, like, basically basketball from the early 2000s. Like, give it into somebody not efficient and hope they score. And, like, that's why the Aces was give it to Asia and pray she did something. And Asia would a lot of time take an inefficient shot. Like, as good. And the thing is, Asia made bad shots. Asia made a lot of bad shots this year. But that's why the Liberty, who moved better, the Lynx were so good. But, like, the Sun played puke ball, the Aces played puke ball, the Sky played puke ball. The Mystics, they just got unlucky. I thought the Sparks played good basketball a lot of the year. Who else didn't make the playoffs? The Atlanta Dream played puke ball. The Storm were okay, I guess. Fever played good basketball at times and puke basketball in the playoffs. Anytime they went into sides ball and Christy Sides took over, they played puke basketball. Like, there is a complete disconnect. Like, there are some teams that play good basketball in the W, but especially when you look 5 years ago, most teams played some of the worst basketball ever.
not to take away from this year. Every finals I've ever played in has been like that, with the exception of a few where we couldn't play. Not in Seattle. We had to go on the road, and some of those teams couldn't get their arenas, so we had to play in smaller arenas. So that happens. See how the systems aren't set up? But all you hear, all the narratives and the conversations were like, oh, nobody cares, nobody watches. But I knew.
Yeah.
I walk around the streets, I get stopped for pictures. Like, obviously people care.
Right.
And this is 10, 15 years ago.
People cared about her. That's the difference. And the thing is that with the whole situation, it's like she knew it would blow up because of Paige. The game blows up around players. And in her defense, she was one of those players. Where if Sue Bird was in today's age, she would be a popular player. But she wouldn't be like, she's no Paige. The way Paige played in high school. I'm sorry, like, Paige is like, if you watch Paige's high school, the flair she played with, she's going hezzy, tween, fadeaways, all this stuff. And it's like, she just played like a guy. For lack of a better way of describing it. Like, I hate to... Actually, no. Like, that's literally a quote from Hailey Van Lith when in her slam thing in high school. She was like, she basically just said, we don't care anymore. We're playing like the guys. We're playing against them. Anything we see a guy do, we want to do that same thing. Like, and basically Hailey Van Lith said, this new crop of guards is going to take over. And it was talking about her, Paige, Caitlin. She said it 5 years ago. And there is a difference between, as good as Sue Bird was, she wasn't exciting like Paige. But she was, again, unbelievably popular.
So anyways, but if you bring it back around to seeing the Paige Bueckers getting that attention in high school,
she was better to watch.
Something's changing.
Because, like, no one had ever seen what Paige Bueckers was doing in high school before. This was arguably the most entertaining guard in that class. Because, I don't know, LaMelo was more entertaining. But the second most entertaining guard in that class being a female player. Like, we'd never seen anything like that before. Like, the only time in high school we'd seen ultra hype was when Candace Parker did a routine one-handed dunk and won the dunk contest.
And that's a really interesting point because I remember that. I remember that very well. Paige Buckets, like all of that going, you know, she commits to UConn. It's like, oh, UConn, you know, here we go. And the same sort of thing. And there was... It certainly presaged what we saw over the last 2 years, right? Or the last maybe 3 years in the NCAA with Caitlin and Angel and whatnot. Like the Paige mania was real. There's a lot of heat around her.
Yeah. So now, like, for me, what that said was, like society's changing. Like younger people are interested in women's basketball or girls basketball. She was in high school.
Yeah.
You know, and you had even not just girls, but boys. Like I remember during the pandemic, you know, we're all bored. Paige was like going on her IG live.
Yes.
And like people were coming in. You know how you can like bring someone in and it's like NBA guys. So that's different.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree with every point except the game was always this good point, because Paige was different. There's a reason why Paige took off, because Paige's game was different. Gino Auriemma, by the way, took away most of Paige's flair. Paige lost most of her flair when she went to UConn. There's no question about that. But like the way Paige played in high school, the way she played with a level of freedom that I haven't seen from a guard not named Caitlin Clark. Like the way she played was so entertaining. And then you look at the college game. When it boomed, was Caitlin Clark was doing stuff. Look, Caitlin Clark, the shots she was taking, we hadn't seen that stuff in college in the men's, his trio. There hadn't been someone doing that. She was basically doing Jimmer Mania in women's basketball. Like, that's the reality of the situation. She basically did Jimmer in the women's. Which is, we saw Jimmer Mania, except, again, she couldn't go to the league after her first Jimmer Mania year, so she needed a second Jimmer Mania year where it got even better. So that's the reality of the situation when it happened. But she's not wrong about Paige. Paige was the first domino to fall. And then people just kept watching and kept watching. I think Paige, Van Lith, Clark when she was a freshman, like these type of players really took away the stigma of watching women's basketball. And then when the Caitlin Clark boomed, it really went into mainstream popularity. But someone said here that the best thing that happened was Bueckers getting hurt. It made no difference. Bueckers got hurt in 2022. That did not make Caitlin Clark start shooting from 30. Like, if you guys don't remember, Bueckers had just picked up like not a full out year-long injury in 2022 when Caitlin Clark was still more popular because the Barstool Bros got wind of her. Like, they watched her pull from 30. Heck, I remember being at my parents' house showing videos of Caitlin Clark in 2022 on my live streams, talking about how good she was going to be in late 2021. Sorry, showing these clips that you'd seen of Caitlin Clark, and that was the reality of it. Was that in 2022, even when Paige was still playing in the tournament and got to the final, it was still Caitlin Clark that everyone talked about. And then 2023, it did not matter that Paige Bueckers was injured. It did not matter. Caitlin Clark averaged 30, put up 40 against Louisville with Van Lith, and a lot of people liked Van Lith at the time, put up 40 on South Carolina and beat them, and then had 30 in the final where unfortunately they just couldn't match up to the size, and the You Can't See Me happened, and we all know then she had the best year. Like, Paige played last year. Did not matter. Caitlin Clark still put up 30 and beat her. Or put up 30 a game and beat her and had 41 against LSU. So, look, it is what it is. I agree with almost all of her points, except the argument that, you know, the league was always good. It was only just a matter of time, because it wasn't. Because saying it's only a matter of time doesn't give enough credit to the young guards, especially. To the young guards who have now become, like, they've become superstars in their own right. I don't think it gives enough credit to Paige Bueckers, to Caitlin Clark for what they've done off the floor, to what Paige Bueckers did for those few years, becoming the number one draw in women's basketball as an 18-year-old. She basically carried the sport on her back for a year from a fan-based standpoint. And then Caitlin Clark taking the torch, and then Juju coming in, and what Juju's been able to do on and off the court, what Cameron Brink's been able to do, what Angel Reese been able to do on and off the court to grow the game. I think it takes away from the amount of work that they put in both on and off the court to say, oh, the league was always like that, because they have built their brands to be bigger than the WNBA. And I you can't take away from what they've done individually as well.